Good afternoon, YouTubers. Well, the wife's down on the boat. She's doing some work on the boat today. I've got a few bits and pieces to do here, and then I'll be joining her down there. And I've just been watching Trevor talking about the army and how he's got more Trevorites than the British Army. It's true. It's true. But you see, there's an old phrase about the British Army. So they are lions led by donkeys. And that's true as well. That came from the First World War, I think. Now, I was in the army, as I've told people in the past. I hated it. I was only in for 3 years. I was a private, I was a zero, I was right at the bottom. Didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything. Didn't even go abroad, didn't win any medals, I wasn't in any wars. Okay, so if that is my claim to fame, then that's it. That's all I ever did. Nothing. Okay, we drove a lorry. I was a driver in the Royal Coach Transport, and I went to loads and loads of boggy, damp places in the UK. The only time I ever went abroad was when I went to the Isle of Wight, if you can count that as abroad, because apparently they found a bog there as well that we could roll around in the mud. Really enjoyed that. Thanks very much for that, Army. Anyway, cutting a long story short, it was run by morons. Everyone around me was a moron. Well, not everybody. There were some actually switched on guys in there, but not many. And I'll give you an example. We'd driven down to Weymouth one day. There was a place called Chiswell Beach, if you look it up. And we'd been to Maidstone in Kent to pick up some bridging equipment for the Royal Engineers, because I think it was 9 para and a few their para engineers and some other engineers wanted to erect a bridge, and they've got this really fast flowing river. It's not really a river, it's a tidal thing. It's a beach, Chiswell Beach. So we'd driven all the way down from Maidstone with this bridging equipment, dropped it off at, they call it the heavy ferry place, the Hard, and then we'd gone off to the camp. The camp was an army camp, and it couldn't have been more than a couple of miles away. Chickerell Camp, I think it was called. So we're there in Chickerell Camp, and it never stopped raining the whole time we were there. The whole time. And we were freezing in these little Nissen huts, trying to get warm. There was some sort of log burner there, but that was like a potbelly stove, and that was it. So we're all in there overnight, trying to get warm. Next morning, we've got to go down to the Hard. So one of the things we have to do in the RCT before you take a truck out is we have to do a thing called the First Parade Service, which basically is checking the oil and the water on the truck. There's a few other checks to do, but they were the two basic ones. And I did this because I was driving a Bedford MK. And as I pulled the dipstick out, there was no oil on it, none whatsoever. I thought, that's odd. And I looked at the lorry, we're not parked on a slope or anything like that. It was pretty level ground-ish. Anyway, put the dipstick back in, pulled it out. I thought, well, we need some oil. Now, our troop sergeant was a fella called, I can see his face, Elsley, I think his name was, I can't remember. Might not be Elsley. But I went to him, and he's going, come on, Eskif, get down the yard. And I said, we've got no oil, Sarge. He says, no oil? I said, I've just first paraded the wagon and there's no oil in it. And he's there, oh, well, there's oil down the Hard. He said, go down the Hard, drive down the Hard, go 2 or 3 miles and fill it up with oil. And I said, no, it's going to seize up. No, it won't, it'll be fine. I said, no, I'm not happy. Anyway, he gets in his Land Rover. Follow me, Eskith, he says. So what you do? Start the engine up, follows him. And we got all the way down to the Hard. And he pulled up ahead of me because where the oil and stuff was. And as I was coming in to stop, all the wheels locked up. And it stopped. And he comes running over. What's the matter? I said, it's just stopped, Sarge. He goes, start it up again. Turn the key. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we spent the next hour pouring oil in it and trying to bump start it, and it was seized solid. And that was the end of that truck. I mean, how this is a sergeant in the Royal Corps Transport, you know, Sarge, there's no oil in the truck. But rather than, because you couldn't be asked to go and get some oil and come back and pour it in, they lost an engine on a vehicle. Now, I never saw that vehicle again, but I dare say it went off to workshops, Savini workshops. I dare say they put another engine in it and it went back on the line somewhere, but I don't think I ever saw that vehicle again. Anyway, I couldn't wait to get out the army. I hated it, absolutely hated it, and I hated most of the Muppets that were around me, because the only thing I really excelled at in that unit was shooting. You know, I actually volunteered for the LMG, and I was in the shooting team, and I was very good. There was nobody could touch me. But that was it. That was the only thing I actually enjoyed doing. So my time came to an end, and I got out as soon as I could. I actually did just under 3 years, and I was out, and that was me. Never thought about the army again. And the only time the unit I was in ever went anywhere or did anything was either a tour in Northern Ireland, which I didn't do. They did a tour in Cyprus with the UN up in is it Larnaca, somewhere like that. I didn't go there either. And they did go to the Falkland Islands, but they went about 6 weeks after the fighting was over, and they were just sweeping up. It was pissing down with rain, it was freezing cold, and they were effectively bin men, just tidying up all the mess. And I didn't go there either. So that was my army career. Now, years and years later, in the early 2000s, there was the Gulf War came along, but by that time I was a qualified pilot. You know, I can fly anything, light aircraft, helicopter. Obviously, with helicopters, you can't fly any particular. You're only licensed for the one helicopter you pass your test in. So effectively, you've got to pass a test. It's called type rating. So if you want to fly a different kind of helicopter to the one you've been flying normally, you have to go and do a type rating in it, maybe 6 hours, something like that, handling, and you pass a test, and they add the type to your license. So you've got to have all these different types. And I thought to myself, well, I'm already a qualified pilot. I said, and the second Gulf War has just happened, and they're all going into. I thought I'll apply to join the army as a helicopter pilot. So I went down there and I said, I've been in the army before. I've done 3 years already, and I'm a qualified pilot. And they said, you're too old. You're 40. I said, 40 is too old, yeah. But I'm already qualified. Yeah, weren't interested. They didn't even want to open my file and see who I was. I thought, right, okay. Clearly you don't need anyone then, do you? Oh, everything's fine. So that was the end of that. And they said, why don't you try the TA? I said, the TA, you want me to join as a helicopter pilot? I don't think there's any TA units around that. And they goes, well, we'll try the army cadets. They're always looking for instructors. So, if you wonder why the British Army is in the state it's in now, I mean, I'm going back 40 years, well, to the Gulf War, 20 years. So that's why they're in the state that they are. Because they're being run by people with their heads up their arse.